So our listener now is able to receive a connection, but we're not able to use it to send or receive data. So as you can see, as soon as we received the connection, we accepted the connection and the program just terminated because we didn't really have any code to send or receive data. Now, the listener.accept method, according to the documentation, it returns two values. The first value is a socket object that represents the connection that we can use to send or receive data. So we're going to call this connection, and the second object or the second value returned by this method is the address that is bound to this connection. So we'll call this address, and we'll make these variables equal to the values returned from the listener.accept. Now, since the address represents the address bound to this connection, we can improve this print statement by saying got a connection from, and we'll convert the address to a string by saying string address. And basically, now when we get a connection, we're going to say got a connection from the IP which we got the connection from. Now, the other value that we're capturing is the connection, and this is the socket object that we can use in order to send and receive data. So it's something similar to the connection that we are creating here. So we can say connection.receive in order to receive data, and we can say connection.send to send data. Now, we're actually going to be using a loop very similar to this one so that we can send commands and receive the results. So I'm going to say while true. First of all, we're going to ask the user to enter a command. We're going to do this using raw input, which is a function that I covered before. You can go revise it if you don't remember how this works, but it's very simple. First of all, we're going to say my command is equal to the result that's going to be returned from raw input, and I want the user to see these two arrows for them to enter their command. Keep in mind, if you're using Python 3, you're supposed to use input instead of raw input. That's something that I covered before. Now, the command variable is going to hold the value entered by the user. So the next thing that we're going to do connection.send, so something very similar to what we did before, and we want to send the command as the data that we want to send. Then our client is going to receive this command using this line. It's going to execute the command, and it's going to return the result for me. Now, once the backdoor or the client returns the result, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the result is equal to connection.receive, receive, and we're going to receive the result in batches of 1024 bytes. And finally, we're going to print the result. And we're done. So basically, all we did is we captured two values that get returned by our listener.accept method. The first one is a new socket object that represents the connection, so it's the one that we're using to send and receive data. And the second one is the address that is bound to this socket. We're printing an appropriate message to tell the user that we received the connection from this address. Then we're trapping the user in an infinite while loop. First of all, we're asking the user to enter a command using raw input. The value is stored in a variable called command. We're sending the command to the backdoor, and then we're waiting for the backdoor to give us the result. So basically, the program is going to pause, waiting for the result. Once it gets the result, it's going to store it in a variable called result, and then we're going to print it on screen. So let's see how this is going to work. I'm going to listen for incoming connections. As you can see, it's telling me I'm waiting for incoming connections. We're going to go to the backdoor. We're going to run it. And if we come here, you'll see that we got a connection from the IP that initiated the connection, which is the IP of the Windows machine. And then we're seeing the two little arrows, which is what we specified in here in our raw input. So you can put any text that you want to be displayed to the user to tell them to enter a command. So we're basically at this line waiting for a command to be given. And once the user puts a command like dir, as you can see, we're going to see the result. This is because this command is being sent and we're waiting for the result. The backdoor is executing the command, returning the result to us, and the result is being printed on screen. Keep in mind, we actually didn't modify the code in the backdoor at all. It's just working without the need to modify anything. So right now, we're able to build our own listener, which is able to communicate with our backdoor. And now we're able to basically hack the target computer and execute system commands using a backdoor and a listener that we wrote from scratch. Now, the method that I showed you so far can be created to create a connection and transfer data between any two computers for any reason. It doesn't have to be a backdoor. I know I said this a lot, but I just want to get this idea across that you can use sockets to transfer data between two computers. Now we created a server and a client, so we're able to transfer data between them regardless of the reason that you want to do that for. Using it to create a backdoor is just one of many examples or uses that you can use sockets for. Now, since we have our own listener now that works perfectly, in the next lecture, we're going to start implementing more features in our backdoor so that it's more useful in real-life scenarios.